Week 1 is here. A 5-day football feast is upon us as we sit here on a beautiful Tuesday evening here deep in the heart of Texas. So many games on tap. I think over 91 games involving FBS teams this weekend. Last weekend was the appetizer. This is the main course. It starts Thursday night. It goes all the way through Monday on Labor Day. Garrett, it's the most beautiful time of the year. How are we feeling?
It is so fantastic to be here at week 1. You said 91 games, and I was like, oh, really? Is that it? Do we only get 91? Like, there's a part of me that feels like it should be a nice even 100. I don't know how we squeeze a couple more of those in there, but yeah, I'm pumped. I'm excited. I couldn't be more happy to be officially out of the off season. Obviously, that week 0 was fantastic, but yeah, come on, give me those 5 days in a row. It is about to hit like recreational drugs. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be one of the best times. So I'm excited. I'm excited to break it down, obviously. But yeah, this is going to be a fantastic time.
Well, please enjoy it responsibly this
Yes.
weekend. Find
Don't
a way to
overdose
enjoy
on
it
college
responsibly.
football. It's going to be
Don't over
easy to overdose.
don't overdose. There's not a lot of opportunities to sneak in any housework. So I hope you got that housework done. I hope
Hmm.
maybe you're listening to this while you're mowing your lawn before games, like an evening lawn mowing session on a Wednesday or
You
something like that. I
you
hope you're
can't
getting your chores
even
done.
you can't even do the thing where like maybe you take kind of Saturday off because it's like, oh, there's like a part of that Saturday morning you can get stuff in. I'll miss the first part of game day because it's Corso. It's You can't miss
Yeah.
that first, but you can't miss it. You can't even miss that one. So like you got to be locked in from the word go, guys. Make sure you get that sleep on that Friday night. Get up with your energy drink because you're gonna need all the help you can get to get through this.
Yeah, we'd be remiss to not start there. Obviously, Lee Corso broadcasting his last college game day. I personally haven't watched a full episode of Game Day in probably 5 or 6 years, probably dating back to when we were in college, maybe. But I'll be locked in on every
Oh
second
yeah.
of college game day, just soaking in as much of Coach as we can before we don't get him on game day anymore. That's gonna be really sad. But if you haven't watched that documentary yet, either that aired last Friday on ESPN, it's a tearjerker. Bring your box of Kleenex
Hmm.
before get all that set up. But lock in, definitely watch that. Garrett, we got a lot of games to talk about. I do want to get into those as soon as we can. But for the folks that are new here, I want to just kind of give you a breakdown of what we do in season. So this is our weekly preview show. You're going to get these most of the time in your podcast feed on YouTube Wednesday morning. We'll give you a little sneak peek, though. We might drop some nuggets on Tuesday on the YouTube channel, maybe out on the socials as well for some of these bigger games starting next week. But we saw you got the Mitch's interview with Drew Tamu yesterday on the YouTube channel. We've got a really big guest coming on Thursday, so we're dropping some nuggets this week as well. But you'll get this main preview show in your feed every Wednesday. Most Saturday nights, we will be live Saturday night, breaking down, following most of the primetime games. Once those go final, we hop on here live. It's going to be a little different this week, though, because we do have a big game on Sunday night. We're going to save all those reactions for Sunday. So this week only, post Miami Notre Dame, you'll get your live reaction show. Every week from there on out, we're going to be Saturday night. Usually it's about 10:30 Central, 10 o'clock, 10:30 Central,
Hmm.
as those primetime games are wrapping up. Sometimes we start a little bit earlier if it's a blowout in the primetime game. So just make sure that your notifications are on. Make sure that you're subscribed, following along on all the social places. Garrett, with all that housekeeping taken care of, let's talk some games, shall we?
Oh boy, here we go.
All right. Well, around here again, if you are new, we break it down this way. We have our three tech big three. That's our three can't miss matchups of the week. This week it was pretty easy to find. Sometimes we dig a little deeper, but this week our big three was pretty obvious. Our big three is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. If you would like to get in on these games and show your ball knowledge, because we know you know ball because you're listening to this show, use our code Underdog 3TechPod at Underdog Fantasy, and you can get in on those contests, make your lineups, check out our lineups later this week as well. But without further ado, let's get into that three tech big three. The headliner, everybody's headliner, is of course up in Columbus, Ohio. It's the game that Coach Corso will be at for his final iteration on College Game Day. It is the Texas Longhorns, number one in the land in the AP poll, visiting the Ohio State Buckeyes, number 3 in the land in the AP poll. Julian Sayin versus Arch Manning. If you look at the coaches poll, Garrett, they're 1-2 in the coaches poll. This is the first time ever that we've gotten 1 versus 2 in a major poll in a season opener. And it's a matchup of two teams that we think should be good. We think should be more than good. We think they should be great. But if you look at the rosters and you haven't been paying attention this offseason, that's okay. We're glad you're here now. But if you haven't been paying attention, if you're just tuning back into college football, you look up and down these rosters and it's going to look extremely different than what you saw in the Cotton Bowl in the semifinal last year. Ohio State is 101st in returning production, according to Bill Connolly at ESPN. Texas is just a little bit behind that at 103rd. Ohio State, a lot of brand new in the coaching box as well. They have Brian Hartline getting promoted, longtime assistant there, ace recruiter, getting a shot to be the offensive coordinator for the first time. And Matt Patricia, former Detroit Lions head coach, I think was with Bill Belichick and with the Patriots. Longtime NFL coach, now going to be the defensive coordinator for the Buckeyes as they lose Jim Knowles to Penn State. But all that being said, all the eyes are on the quarterbacks in this one. Arch Manning, the long-awaited debut as the full-time starter for the Texas Longhorns. Julian Sayin, number 1 quarterback in the class right after Arch, getting his first shot at the starting lineup for Ohio State. There could be a lot of fireworks in this one, Garrett, and I think a lot of people might be disappointed if they're expecting an absolute shootout. But what are you expecting in this one? What are some things that you feel like you know as we go into a game with so many unknowns?
Yeah, that's the hard part is this game is really going to be so unexpected, right? You ask yourself for both of these teams, could both of these teams win the whole thing this year? Yeah, they both have the talent. They both have the guys to do it. Could both of these teams maybe fail to reach expectations? Yeah, that's possible because we just don't know who some of these guys are. So trying to guess this one is basically just having like a dude off, right? Where you're just like, hey, which dudes do I think I understand can hit the ground running from the word go, right? Because we're not trying to decide which team has the better roster. We're not trying to decide which team has the better coaching. We're saying which team has been able to use their offseason the best to get all these new faces and new pieces and some returning ones up to speed so that when they start playing football and that ball starts on the kickoff, we understand, hey, it's time to go, right? For me, to talk about the quarterbacks to start, I think they're both going to be pretty good. I don't know if both of them are going to be there in game one. I think we're probably going to see some mistakes, probably going to see a couple of like missed reads or like maybe a bad decision, interception type of thing. I know that they're going to be good over the course of the season. I just don't know how good they're going to be, again, at the word go. This is by far the biggest game that either of them will have ever started. We just don't know what's going to happen between their ears, right, when it starts, right? Practice is great. Some smaller games are great. Mop-up duty is great. But what's happening between your ears when it's the first quarter and you got to come out there and execute your first opening drive, right? We just don't know what's going to be going through either their heads. I'm a little bit nervous about that Texas offensive line working together. It's a lot of new faces. It's a lot of talent, but it's a lot of new faces who, look, they're trying to get it together in a hostile environment, right? This is not an easy place for an offensive line to try to break in and gel, right? Talent is one thing, cohesion is a very different thing. And so for me, watching that Texas offensive line, see how they kind of get to be in those road graders that the line was last year, seeing if they can kind of keep that pace is going to be an interesting one for me to kind of watch here and see if they can keep Arch upright and keep that offense rolling. I'm a little bit nervous about Ohio State. I have OSU written down. Ohio State. Nervous about Ohio State's defensive scheme because they've got a new defensive coordinator, right? Matt Patricia, he's the DC. He's good, but getting 11 guys on the same page is not easy, right? All it takes is one safety forgetting which quarter he's supposed to be in. All it takes is one guy forgetting he's supposed to drop in coverage when he's supposed to, go a little bit further up and stay pressed. All it takes is one thing, and then you got, Texas receivers running past you, right? That's not what you want if you're Ohio State. So for both of these teams, they have things that I'm a little bit concerned about. For me, the big X factor here is actually going to be home field. I think that having home turf in this game is going to be a big deal for Ohio State. They both have inexperienced quarterbacks. I'd much rather break in my quarterback at home and not have to have him be in that kind of tough environment to start off the game. I think it's going to come down to just the guys with experience on both sides stepping up, right? You got guys on, the defensive side for Texas, a Colin Simmons, right? Ant Hill. It's going to be them trying to step up and be those guys to lead the defense. I think on the other side, Ohio State just has more of those players. Right now, for me, the big X factors on the offensive side for Ohio State, Carnell Tate and Max Clare kind of just winning their battles is going to be super critical, because if they're able to pull a little bit off of, the coverage and kind of pull it to their side of the field, it lets Jeremiah Smith run free, and that's what we're looking for. So for me, I don't really know which way this one's going. I'm pretty torn on this one. I've gone back and forth, but I think right now, I think Ohio State scores just a little bit more, makes a couple more opportunities than Texas. It converts a couple more of those opportunities. I'm going to pick them to cover the 1.5 right now. Win by, I would say, 3 or 4. I could see this thing ending up like 24-20 or something like that.
I wrote down 23-17,
Yeah.
and I'm on Ohio State as well to spoil the pick here. You mentioned Carnell Tate. He's an absolute X factor, because if you think back to that Cotton Bowl last year, the Texas defensive staff and their defensive players did a great job keeping Jeremiah Smith in check. I think he had 1 catch for 3 yards in that game, but flip side of that was Carnell Tate went absolutely nuclear, and that's just the luxury that you
He had a
have
good game.
when I think they do have the best collection of offensive skill talent, running backs, receivers, tight ends in the entire country. I don't think that that's really that much debatable at this point. Alabama might have something to say about that. There's a couple other teams that are going to be up there as well, but I think Ohio State has the best collection of offensive skill talent in the country. It's just an embarrassment of riches over there. I will say, I already spoiled my pick, but when I go back and forth on things, I like to make a pros and cons list. And that's what I did for these 2 quarterbacks stepping into this situation. Arch's pros are, he, of course, has the pedigree, and we're all banking on that last name of Manning, it seems like. He has a little bit of in-game experience, and he has the coordinator and play caller continuity. Steve Sarkisian is going to put him in a position where if he can execute the offense, I think Steve Sarkisian is going to call a good game. I trust him to do that at this point. The cons are he doesn't have a lot of experience around him. You hinted that on the offensive line. It's also at the receiver positions.
Mm-hmm.
These are guys that, I said this in the Texas preview, but these are guys that have been on the team, have made big plays in spots, but they have not been the guy on their team. They have not had to step up and be the wide receiver 1, be the wide receiver 2. Oh, and they're going to be without the transfer wide receiver from Stanford, Emmett Mosley. It looks like he's going to be banged up, might not get to play in this one too. They're kind of banking on him to be a big part of this offense too. So they're going to be a little bit handicapped there, and they're breaking in a ton of new players on the offensive line and at the receiver positions. For Julian Sayin, it's almost flipped. Like I said, he probably has the best collection of skill talent in all of college football, but no experience, no continuity at the offensive coordinator position. He does have Ryan Day, and I think Ryan Day's fingerprints are going to be all over this offense, of course. But the thing I keep coming back to is we've seen Arch Manning play, and we've seen some big moments from him. Texas as a whole, we just haven't quite seen them get over that last hump. And that last hump is the games against Georgia last year, finding a way to win one of those games when you're at home or in a neutral site. Finding a way in a winnable Ohio State game last year, right? That was played in Arlington. They just haven't found a way to get over that hump against that next tier of teams, the Ohio State, the Georgia. I know they beat Alabama a couple years ago, but that was a pretty flawed Alabama team at that point in the season.
Sure.
So they just haven't found a way to get over that hump for these elite of the elite of the elite teams. And until I see that happen, especially on the road, I'm going to roll with Ohio State. So write in, let us know what you think. Gary, if you have any more thoughts on this game, we don't have to transition away to that quickly, but
no, I was going to say, the big thing for me on this one is I don't want to really come down super hard on either of these teams.
Sure,
because
yeah.
if they play this game week 6 or week 8, I'm probably very, very different on this game, because I think that the thing that, if you're a Texas fan and you're hearing us just rag on Tech, we both went Ohio State on this one. A lot of it just comes down to what we can trust right now and some of the intangibles around college football, right? Like I was talking about home field advantage, right? You're talking about like in-game experience and like, some of the pieces around him. Come, week 6, week 8, that's going to be a very different storyline for Texas. And so we're saying maybe they don't start super fast, but like they could turn this into 11-1 where their only loss is the opening week against Ohio State on the road. There's nothing wrong with that. You're still a team that can win the national championship in that situation. I think the one thing that I want to keep reiterating is like, look, Arch Manning is probably going to be a fantastic quarterback, but he's still like, this is still his first like big start where he's really getting a chance against a big team to take the reins and say, yeah, this is my team, like, let's go. And there's not a whole lot of help around him. There's good, talented players, but there's not like for
Not a
example,
lot
for
of
Sam,
proven help. They
right?
they
Like
could
for
step
Sam,
up
he gets
and
to throw it to the best receiver in college football, right? That's awesome if you're Julian Sand. Arch Manning doesn't really have that. Like he's got talented receivers, he's got very good receivers that could step up and become one of the best receivers in college football, but he just doesn't have that guy right now, right? And maybe we're going to be talking about one of these guys, becoming the man the same way that we did with, Matthew Golden last year. Like he was a big time player down the stretch who'd go up and get anything you threw at him. That guy might be on the team, but we didn't know about him week one. Not like that. We didn't think that week one Golden was going to be that guy. Right now you have to figure that out week one. And if you go out there and you're playing in the shoe and it's 14-0 because you get punched in the face off the rip, then it's time to rally. And if Texas can go down and rally, great, but that's also just part of college football, right? It's also just part of, you might be running into a buzzsaw. I don't think that's the case. I think they'll keep it close. I think it'll be relatively low scoring. We both kind of picked it in the low 20s for the winning score, but again, like I just think it's one of those things where when you have a brand new cast of characters, right? And there's so many new people on this team stepping into new roles. Like you have to pump the brakes just a little bit, not for the whole season, just for week one.
that's well said. And I think the one other position group that is replacing a lot of talent is that defensive interior.
Mm-hmm.
And if Ohio State gets going running the ball, I know Ohio State has some new running backs too, but those guys are really talented. They are guys that have proven it at the FBS level. In the case of C.J. Donaldson coming over from West Virginia, so
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be a vulnerability for Texas. I know
Well,
that they were highly touted transfers and they filled that room in really well, but are they at the level that they were last season with those guys that are now pushing for starting roles in the NFL as
and,
rookies?
and I think all of their jobs get easier because of Colin Simmons. Obviously, like he's gonna
Sure.
take attention. But the big question there is like, okay, like I've seen the comparisons. Like Colin Simmons is like the new Myles Garrett, right? Like everyone's talking about how he's looking like that, playing like that. He's that kind of dominant. Well, if you go and you watch some of the tape of Myles Garrett in college, there are a lot of times he'd get double and triple teamed and held and just no calls. So like Texas fans, get ready when you got the best edge rusher. That's going to happen sometimes. But also, you got to go find your Deshaun Hall, right? Where he's the guy on the other side who can also make noise and win his one on one because the other guy, Colin Simmons in this case, is taking so much attention away, right? You can have that player, but like somebody's got to step up and be that level of dominant so that, you can't just sit there and double and triple, Colin Simmons the entire game. So like everyone's job is going to get easier because of it, but it's going to be on them to step up and deliver with all that extra attention that Simmons is going to get.
Yeah, that's a good point. And listen, this is going to be a fun one. We're going to learn a
Mhm.
lot about both of these teams. We're going to see who has that it factor to rise up and win a close game. I think this is going to be a very
And,
close, hard fought, difficult game.
yeah.
And we as a college football universe are going to very much overreact to that game
Oh
because
yeah.
all the takes I saw out of week 0 were crazy overreacting. And you said it best, man. I think neither one of these teams is going to be eliminated if they lose from national championship contention, but we could
hmm
see some flaws that are concerning from this game. And if those
I
flaws aren't addressed as the season goes along, it could be very difficult for these teams.
I am so prepared for the over sensationalizing that is coming from like the
Arch
big
will either
media
be
outlets.
Arch will either be the greatest quarterback of all time or the biggest bum of all time,
Oh
depending
yeah,
on if he
it's
wins this
I
game or
can't wait for
loses.
the on three graphic where it says like busted and it's just a picture of Arch when they lose because like he threw a pick on the like he threw it to Caleb Downs. Bummer. Okay, he's gonna get his. It'll be that kind of situation where the on three will have the big busted graphic and then ESPN will be like, is Arch Manning the biggest failure in his family? And you're just like, okay, let's take a big step back and realize like he didn't put those expectations on him. You did. Like it was the media that put the expectations on him. So when he wasn't an automatic Heisman candidate, like that's not his fault, right? This is still like his first season being the guy. Let's give him a little bit of a break. And if he comes out there and wins, like congratulations. I hope that Ohio State's as good as we think they are. If they turn into like a 9-3, 8-4 type of team because it turns out they're not that good, we could be overreacting towards Texas as well. So
like we did
it's
against
going to be
Michigan
fun to
last
watch.
year.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have fun watching this game. Whoever wins this should feel some pride. But either way, let's not overreact, positive or negative, towards Texas or Ohio State, right? We can't do that. Let's take a deep breath and let's enjoy the other 11 games of the regular season.
Nah, man, it's a 1 game season. It's going to be over, or
It's
we're
this or
crowning a
nothing,
national
yeah.
champion on Saturday. Well, write in. Let us know, guys. Let us know your score prediction down in the comments on this YouTube video here, or on the tweet as we tweet this out as well. But Garrett, let's move on to the, I would say, co-headliner. It's crazy that we're considering this as kind of an undercard. It feels like an afterthought with the massive game at noon. 6:30 p.m. on ABC. It is the battle for Death Valley supremacy. LSU visiting Clemson, the number 9 Tigers of LSU, the Bayou Bengals, visiting the number 4 Clemson Tigers. Clemson 3.5-point favorites at home at time of recording here. This is such a fun matchup. And I think the opposite situation where I think Texas and Ohio State is going to be a defensive struggle, a very hard fought yards and points are going to be at a premium. This one could turn into a wild shootout at any moment. This might be one of, if not the best quarterback matchups we get all year long with Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier. Clemson's expected to make a big jump this year, back into that championship contention tier on the backs of having the number 1 returning production in all of college football. And then we, of course, have the big storyline of LSU in season openers, not just under Brian Kelly. This has been a problem that was laid at Orgeron as well. They've lost 5 straight season openers dating back to the 2020 season. The last time they won a season opener was that 2019 year with Joe Burrow and all the fun wide receivers, where they went on to, of course, win the national championship. But one thing that I haven't seen a lot of people talking about, Garrett, is Clemson has really struggled in openers the last couple of years. Last year, of course, 34-3, losing to Georgia in Atlanta. That was just a game where it was a little bit close at halftime, I guess, but the second half was all Bulldogs.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 years ago, they lose 28-7 to Mike Elko and Duke on the road to open up the season. That was a big statement win for the Blue Devils. So, all that being said, that's all last year. That's all previous years. What we do know about these teams is that Clemson is bringing basically everybody back. And LSU has a lot of talent returning. They're going to be really fun this year as well, but they do have some key spots where they might be vulnerable.
Yeah, and one of those spots for me that I'll highlight here in a second is the offensive line. That's my big concern for LSU this season, is just how much NFL talent they lost off of that offensive line. That's not easy to replace. And similar to what I said with Texas, breaking that in on the road in some kind of a crazy environment, that's a tall task for anybody. I don't care how good you think the guys are, and from what we've kind of heard and read, I think LSU is excited about their guys up front. I don't care who you are. I don't care how talented you are. It's tough to break somebody in on the road, and doing that in Death Valley is tough, right? That's just tough to do. I don't have Clemson losing a game this year, and I'm not going to pick them to lose this one. I think they cover here. I think this is a bit of a shootout where Clemson kind of ends up pulling away late. My big thing on this is just, number one, Garrett Nussmeier has to throw fewer interceptions. He just has to. He got, a couple of times last year. I'm thinking the A&M game, Ole Miss, Bama, threw a bunch of picks and kind of kept his team out of it. He can't do that, right? He has to find a way now in a big spot to deliver, keep the ball in his own hands, because this Clemson offense is way too electric to just give them free opportunities, right? They may not convert on all their drives. Don't give them more drives, and don't give them short fields. Cade Klubnik brings back his top 3 receivers. They're bringing back over 2,200 yards and 21 total touchdowns from last year. That's what I'm talking about when we said like returning production. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
They're not missing like a big piece from last year's pass game. Not really. Like, their 3 biggest pieces are all back. He's going to have his guys to sling it to. And that's huge, because you don't just care about talent and all that. You care about chemistry, right? Having the ability to know when that guy's going to break, how he's going to come out of his route, when he's going to be open. That's a big deal. So I think that's going to play them a lot of favors this year. End of the day, I think that both teams have some things to fix on the defensive side that I don't think they probably will in this game, just because there's a whole lot of, I think, offense in this game and a lot of offensive firepower. So both teams will probably leave the game thinking they've got some issues on defense, whoever wins. Um, Again, that's another one of those don't react to week one too hard, right? Take a big step back and realize these are two very good offenses. And if you give up 30 and a win, you're probably okay. I do think that we end up probably with both teams getting over 30, but I think this is one where Clemson pulls away late. I like a lot of scoring in this one. I'm going to go ahead and say that Clemson probably wins this one, something like 42 to 33 or something like that, where they keep it close most of the game and then punch one more touchdown in at the end to kind of make the exclamation point and put it out of reach.
That would kind of be a quintessential Brian Kelly opener under LSU,
Yeah,
right? Or when he's at LSU, because they've kind of been in all those games. That second Florida State game that was played in either Orlando or one of the NFL stadiums in Florida, I can't remember exactly,
I
but
think that was Camping World.
yeah, I think it was in
Yeah.
Orlando. So that one, they were kind of out of it at halftime. But the Florida State game at the Sugar Bowl was neck and neck. The USC game last year was neck and neck.
Mm-hmm.
LSU did a lot of things right offensively in that USC opener last year. And I think in a lot of their losses, save the Alabama game, they did a lot of stuff right. But then just crucial plays at crucial moments have escaped LSU under Brian Kelly, just losing focus at the worst possible times. And I think that could really be a big problem for them in this one. Just kind of highlighting what you're saying about that offensive line, Garrett. They're projected to start a redshirt freshman at left tackle that has one career start, and they could potentially have a true freshman at right tackle. So, I mean, when I look across the line, I see guys like TJ Parker and Will Helt, a transfer, mind you. Dabo did get him out of the transfer portal from Purdue. I know,
Is that
shocking,
legal?
but it is legal, and he utilized the portal this year more so than he has in the past. He took like 4 guys. But when you look across the line, you have those two elite pass rushers. It's hard for me to get excited about Garrett Nussmeier having a lot of time to throw the football and find those wide receivers. I think similar to what we were talking about with Texas, they're going to find the playmaker at wide receiver this year. They have plenty of options there, plenty of talented dudes. Quite frankly, they go 4 or 5 deep. But this feels like a really bad matchup, especially at the tackle positions, especially with 2 elite edge rushers coming off the edge. And when Nussmeier gets pressured, he's a different guy. We say that about a lot of quarterbacks. That's like duh in football analysis. But if he was sacked more than 2 times last year, LSU was 2-3, and those 2
Mm.
wins that they had were by a combined 10 points. They squeaked out wins that they probably shouldn't have against South Carolina, and then they barely beat Vanderbilt at home at the end of the year in
Yeah.
those 2 wins. So I don't like this matchup for LSU. I'm with you. I think Clemson covers the spread. I think LSU is going to be improved on defense, but this is a Clemson offense that's been building together for 3 or 4 years. They have been getting the reps together for a long time. They have it down at this point. The only question that we have about this offense is probably at the running back position, but Adam Randall has looked really good at camp. He's a really experienced guy, a graduate. They really like Gideon Davidson, the true freshman. He's going to get a lot of run in this game as well. So I just like Clemson. There's too many good
Mm-hmm.
vibes around this program right now to pick against them on opening night. And I think it's going to be a fun one. A lot of offensive fireworks, but I think Clemson comes out on top in this one.
Yeah, and that's kind of the hard thing is, with quarterbacks, you try to analyze what's going to kind of affect them, right? And I love the sack stat, but like obviously we've seen him melt down, right? We've seen him kind of have those moments where it's like, okay, the picks are coming here, and if you're both getting outraced because Klubnik and the guys on the other side of the field are just running, laps around you and running up and down the field on your defense, if that's happening and you're also getting pressured, like that's where the picks start coming back. And there's just too many situations where I see a possibility for error for LSU. Now, there's a chance that Nussmeier comes out here and plays fantastic, doesn't turn the ball over, throws for 400 yards, and it's a true just track meet. I think even in that situation, I still think that Clemson has what it takes to hang with them and go like bow for bow. So I think the pathway for the LSU victory here is a little too narrow for me. Not impossible, but it's just a little too narrow here.
Let us know, like I said, with the Texas-Ohio State game, let us know your score predictions down in the comments. Let us know who you have winning this one. Should be a fun one. Should be an absolute blast in the primetime window. Night games at Death Valley, either one, but especially Clemson, just have a different
Mm-hmm.
aura to them. So I'm excited to watch this one and break it down on our Sunday live show. Speaking of Sunday, let's go over to our last game in the 3-Tech Big Three. It is our third top 10 matchup of opening weekend. Just what an
We're
insane.
getting spoiled, Trey. It's
We're
not fair.
blessed, man. Like life is so good. If you are having a bad day, just remember that you have 3 top 10 college football matchups this weekend, and your day is going to get better. That's a
Mm-hmm.
blessing. That's a gift from God. So, without further ado, it is Catholics versus convicts. It's number 6 Notre Dame versus number 10 Miami. I don't think Miami likes that moniker as much anymore, but we
They have done
digress
a
and
lot
we
of work to distance themselves.
and then they had that booster that
Yeah.
got caught with all the cocaine on the yacht or something. I don't know. I probably have that story wrong. But anyways, Notre Dame Miami. It's a classic rivalry. It's the first matchup since 2017. Notre Dame leads the series 18-8-1 all time, and is the first. I don't know if you saw this today, Garrett. The speaking of that 2017 matchup, the Miami official account got community noted today because they tweeted something along the lines of, "Oh, the last time Notre Dame was in Hard Rock Stadium, it didn't end well for them. They weren't so lucky." And then all the Notre Dame fans, of course, were like, "Hey, we were there in January 2025 for the Orange Bowl, and we in fact won that game." So they got
Yeah.
community noted.
The
That was
downsides of playing in a stadium that's not really yours.
You know, I don't want to dunk on Miami over and over again in this segment. We have a lot of Miami people that watch, but
Yeah.
listen, this is going to be a fun game. CJ Carr making his first career start for Notre Dame. Carson Beck, of course, coming down from Georgia, making his debut for the Hurricanes. Garrett, this is a game that I was pretty locked in my pick all year, but I started waffling a little bit this week. There's a lot of hype around Miami. There's a lot of it hitting my algorithm on Twitter. It made me take a closer look, and I don't think that this game is going to be as decisive of a victory as I thought it was going to be. I think we're going to be treated to a pretty close one on Sunday night. What do you think?
This is the game that I'm most kind of back and forth on this week of any of the games, not just the big three, but any of them. I really am struggling to figure out how to differentiate these two teams because, on one side, talk Notre Dame, you've got CJ Carr, new quarterback. I don't think he's even thrown a pass in college yet. So, like, he's pretty green. Even if he hasn't played any sort of meaningful snaps. And the one thing that I think is a little bit different about him is he's not going to be the same runner at the quarterback position as they had last year, right? So, like, there's a difference to what Notre Dame's offense is going to be this year just by virtue of the fact that he's a different style quarterback. So, for CJ Carr, I'm kind of thinking, okay, can he figure out the offense well enough with the running back being as solid as he's going to be with Jeremiah Love? Like, can he figure out the offense well enough in an actual game scenario on the road to be able to keep this offense humming, right? I think he'll be able to. He's good. He's a good quarterback, but I'm just not confident enough in everything that I can say, yeah, for sure, he's going to keep this thing dynamic. He has good pieces around him, right? Faison, Fields, Greathouse, they're going to make his life a lot easier, but I'm still just kind of sitting here not quite sure what to expect out of him. On the flip side, Carson Beck's a freaking great quarterback. He is amazing. He played really well. Maybe not quite as good last season, but I mean, when you're saying not quite as good and he still threw for over 3,000 yards and a whole bunch of touchdowns, that's still pretty dang good. He took a little bit of a step back last year. Again, like, I think a little change of scenery should do him good, but that's kind of my thing is, I don't like to just analyze the quarterback in a vacuum. I try to go backwards and say, like, is he going to make you better than Cam Ward? I don't know that he does right now. Like, maybe at some point this season, he's got a better handle on the offense and can take that step. But right now, I don't think he makes you better than Cam Ward did last year. So I'm kind of wondering what this offense looks like with Carson Beck back there. So looking at this entire thing, I'm not really sure what to think about them. I know that the defenses should be all right. Got a couple more questions on Miami's side than I do on Notre Dame's side when it comes to defense, but Notre Dame's got a lot of new faces. lost a bunch of key pieces from that team that went to the championship last year. So I don't feel good about this pick, but I'm going to lean Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame wins this one. I do have them covering in the sheet. I think I'm going to not do that anymore. I think I'll pick Miami to cover those points up, and this will be like a 1 or 2 point game.
Wow.
I just don't like either of these teams making enough separation over the other one. I think both teams will find a way to stay in it, and maybe frustratingly, I think both teams will make enough mistakes to keep the other one in it as well. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a little bit of a turnover fest at times in this one. So I think I trust Notre Dame to lead that one more drive, get into field goal range, kick a field goal to win at the very end. I don't entirely trust Miami with that leadership right now. I think somebody's got to step up for Miami to lead that team. I think Carson Beck can be that guy. I just don't know if it's from the word go.
Yeah, so you're calling for a really tight one.
I think so.
Literally going down to the gun. I love that on a Sunday night. That's exactly what we want in these non-Saturday.
Well, and also the off the field thing, it's going to have to be close because it would be way too easy if it was a blowout for us to just start the live stream early. So
that's right.
They got to go close so we don't get notes on a winner and we can't make a graphic early on a winner. We got to get like right down to the wire just for that purpose.
I still have PTSD from trying to write the headlines of the Alabama-Georgia game last year when it was just certain that Alabama was going to win. Then they lost the lead and then got it right back. Ryan Williams was him that night, and it was incredible. But, yeah, so like I said, all off season long, I've kind of been almost sharpieing this in as a win for Notre Dame. When we broke down the Fighting Irish with Tyler Noe of Always Talking Ball, I came to the conclusion that this is a Death Star that Notre Dame has built. And funnily enough, there was a comment in when we posted that YouTube video that, hey, we're not the Death Star at Notre Dame. The Death Star blew up. I think this might be a Death Star without an exhaust port this year.
Uh-oh.
I think you look at some of the computer models, and Notre Dame, not just by virtue of their schedule, but by the talent on their team, has the highest odds of any team in the country to go 12-0 this year. That's not saying that they will go 12-0. I think there is a pretty good chance that as CJ Carr is kind of finding his footing, they might stub their toe against Miami on the road. They might stub their toe against Texas A&M in a couple weeks when the Aggies go up to South Bend. They have some interesting games later on, but those are definitely the two highlights right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
But in this matchup in a vacuum, I just feel like Notre Dame has too much going to help their quarterback. And I worry about what the supporting cast looks like for Carson Beck at this point. Kind of like we talked about with a lot of the other teams. We talked about it with LSU. We talked about it with Texas. The supporting cast behind the quarterback might not look great. I think by the end of the year, Carson Beck is going to be thankful that he transferred to Miami because his supporting cast is going to look a lot better than what he was dealing with at Georgia last year that led the nation in drops. I've been very vocal on the show that I'm calling for a Carson Beck renaissance here this year. But I don't think it starts this week. And I think Exhibit A is just kind of what we saw in Notre Dame's opener last year against Texas A&M. This is a Miami receiving core that I think will find playmakers, but this is a Notre Dame secondary that could be the best in the country. They have a lot of young talent. They have so many guys coming back from on the back end from what they had last year. They did lose some draft picks on the defense, like you mentioned, Garrett, but they had a lot of guys that played a lot of snaps on that defense and a lot of crucial snaps last year, especially on that back end. This is a secondary that is great about not giving separation. They even held that Ohio State receiving core not fully in check, but it took until the very end of the game for that bomb to Jeremiah Smith to happen to kind of ice the national championship. So I don't see this Miami receiving core right now having the ability to, and the chemistry with Carson Beck to exploit the Notre Dame secondary. I see it very similar to what A&M struggled with last year. You and I were at that game. We saw it live. There was just microscopic separation for Connor Wigman to try to throw the ball into. I worry that Miami might struggle with that a little bit. On the other side of the ball, Miami secondary had great moments last year. If you just look at stats and you didn't watch any of the games, you think that Miami had a very solid defense last year, but there were times where the floodgates just broke. The Louisville game, the Duke game, the Syracuse game at the end of the year. I know Iowa State, they were playing with a lot of people out with opt-outs in the bowl game, but that one as well. Notre Dame's built to exploit that this year. Even if CJ Carr is not humming quickly, they've revamped that receiving core. They went and got guys like Malachi Fields from Virginia, Will Pauling from Cal, I believe. I can't remember off the top of my head where he came from. I think it was Cal. They got guys to exploit talented secondaries. And oh yeah, they probably have the deepest running back room in the entire country if that's not working. So I think Notre Dame just has a little bit too much going on for them right now. Miami by the end of the year will be a scary team. I think this could be a Miami team that gets better as the year goes on. And we haven't said that a lot about a Miami Hurricanes team in recent years, but for this week in this vacuum in this game, I'm taking Notre Dame probably somewhere in the 27-17 range. I think Miami will keep it close for a little bit, but Notre Dame delivers a knockout blow there towards the end.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think the only real hesitation for me is just I do think Carson Beck can elevate the team around him a little bit more than I think, CJ Carr will right now. And so that's my only real hesitation on that. But I mean, Notre Dame is the better team, the better roster overall. And again, this is one of those, you played this game week 6, week 8, no chance, right? Notre Dame's going to roll straight over them. They're going to be in a rhythm. But for me, I just think, at this point, it's like, I don't really know, man. Carson Beck's played a lot of college football. He's been really good. So is there a chance that, Carson Beck just drops a nuke on their heads and says, like, I'm him? Like, yeah, there's a real
chance.
If
it turns into a shootout, that certainly favors Miami. Notre Dame retooled their offense, but they do not want any part of a shootout, especially with a guy making his first career starter quarterback.
Yeah, so it's a tough one for me to get a beat on. Again, like I was listening to you talk about that. I'm like, yeah, you're swaying me. Notre Dame's better. They're going to win. And then I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And so I just keep fence sitting on this one. I'm not sure. I don't feel good about this one. I will be doing exactly nothing with this game when it comes to our underdog stuff. I'm not touching anything Notre Dame Miami with our underdog stuff this week.
I don't know. Jeremiah Love is a fun play on underdog. He tends to do well in those underdog contests. But write in. Let us know what your thoughts are on these big three. We have some more games to talk about, though. We pick up the pace here a little bit on what we call the Saturday storylines. This is where we try to get you this week all the information you need to know about Friday and Saturday, and even a little bit of Monday there towards the end. So Saturday storylines look a little bit different this week. Most weeks, it is the other games we think you should keep an eye on outside of the big three. The big three is kind of can't miss. Find a place, find a sports bar, find a spot on your couch. Make sure that you're not making brunch plans with your wife and her friends. Like, find a spot on the couch for these games. But these are the other ones that you can kind of check the score on, tune in on your phone, make sure that you're following along, and we'll break it all down for you, of course, on the live show each and every week. We start on Friday night, Garrett, and we start on the banks of the Brazos River. Auburn and Baylor playing one of the most intriguing season openers that I can remember in quite some time. In fact, this is the first time since 1995 that Baylor has welcomed an SEC opponent into Waco. Of course, McLean Stadium wasn't there all the way back then. It would have been the case, but rest in peace. But that was Mississippi State coming to the case back in 1995, last time that they hosted an SEC opponent. Storylines abound in this game, and I feel like it's not getting the justice that it deserves from just a national media standpoint. It's Friday night. It's on Fox, so make sure you have your rabbit ears ready if you're a YouTube TV person like I am, and I think you are too, Garrett. Make sure that you have those rabbit ears ready to go and tuned in so that you cannot miss this one. Auburn's a 2.5-point road favorite. Jackson Arnold is being banked on as being the answer for Auburn, as they have maybe one of the best wide receiver cores in the nation, definitely top 2 or 3 in the SEC. But do they have the quarterback that can put that all together? That is the biggest question. We've seen some murmurs in fall camp. We've seen some clips come out. Of course, not having a ton of context. We never do in those situations. But this is a big vibe game for both of these teams. Baylor thinks that they're capable of winning the Big 12. We think they'll be right there in that title race as well. Auburn thinks that they're capable of making a very big jump from a couple of disappointing seasons to start the Hugh Freeze tenure. Big time vibe game. Where do you see this one playing out? What's your read on it?
I've got Baylor winning this one outright. I know that they are technically the dog. I do have them winning this game. I think obviously they have the clear quarterback advantage. Sawyer Robertson's a lot better than Jackson Arnold, but I do think that Jackson Arnold will be brought up by his supporting cast. Like I think with that cast of receivers, it's almost impossible that you won't have somebody open at some point in time to go chuck a long ball at, right? Like somebody's going to run at some point. Um, I have a lot of confidence in this one in the Baylor run game, specifically with running back Bryson Washington and then what they got on the O line. I think they're going to be able to control the game a little bit. And even if Auburn wants to turn this thing into a little bit of a track meet, I could see it being a thing where Auburn hits a deep ball and it's a 2-play 75-yard touchdown drive, and then Baylor sits on the ball for the next 8 minutes and just methodically drives it down the field, makes good decisions, and puts the ball in the end zone anyways. In that kind of situation, obviously that I think favors Baylor being able to control the game. Even if they want to turn this thing into a track meet, I think Robertson and company can keep up. I think Baylor wins this one outright. I don't really trust everything going on in that Auburn locker room right now. Something seems off. I know you were saying that just something seems different. Something seems wrong here. So I just don't trust it right now. And I think it's going to be a big win for Baylor. I'm a little higher on them than I think you guys were. I'm pretty high on Baylor this year.
Baylor's right there in the Big 12 title conversation for me. They have a brutal schedule. We don't have to break all that down. You can go listen to our Big 12, our Baylor preview on the channel for that. But brutal schedule. If they can navigate that, they're going to be right there in the thick of things for the Big 12 title. I'm with you. I'm taking Baylor to at least cover the spread. Haven't decided if I'm picking them outright yet. Plus 2.5 for the Bears. I just don't think Auburn has done enough to deserve being favored on the road against a competent team at this point. I could be wrong about that. I'm more than willing to be wrong about that. But this iteration of Auburn, again, we're banking on Jackson Arnold to be the answer to all of life's questions on the offensive side of the ball. He has a ton of fun weapons to throw to. There's no denying that. Peyton Thorne had a bunch of fun weapons to throw to last year. We're really going to see if it was a chicken or egg situation for Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma last year. Obviously, he had a lot going against him last year, but I'm just not ready to bet on Hugh Freeze Auburn in this spot. And it has more to do with the just general vibe of the program, like you said, than it does maybe with Jackson Arnold specifically. So give me Baylor plus 2.5. Also on Friday night, we've got a really fun one up in Boulder, Colorado. We've got Georgia Tech, longtime favorite of this podcast, 4-point favorites over the Colorado Buffaloes. Big news out of Buffalo today, Garrett. I don't know if you saw this, but Ralphie the Buffalo is retiring due to, quote, an indifference to running as part of the decision that went into that. I think that
Hey, Ralphie, you want to run this one? Either or.
There was a clip. There was a clip from the Alamo Bowl where Ralphie was really struggling to get up to speed, and I think
I struggle with the same thing, Ralphie. I get you.
Yeah, if there's something serious going on there and there's like an injury, I don't want to make fun of the animal mascot. We love Ralphie. We love that tradition. It's just a little sad that we won't get that. They are bringing a new Ralphie up to speed, and they're hoping to get that new Ralphie up by the middle of the season, but we will not have the run-in of the Ralphie on Friday night, unfortunately. But back to the game on the field. Again, I apologize if I'm being very insensitive about something I don't know about. Colorado is replacing basically everybody. They retired some jerseys at the spring game inexplicably for some of those legendary players. And Georgia Tech is bringing a whole lot back. And I don't want to oversimplify things, but that feels very, very important in this situation. There's a big hype train around Georgia. We don't really know what to expect about Colorado. Caden Salter is going to get the start, the Liberty transfer, but Julian Lewis, the 5-star freshman, is going to get some opportunities as well. I'm in on Georgia Tech, man. Georgia Tech -4. Y'all put me in the graphic where I'm in the car and not getting run over, so I feel like I got to pick them here.
It truly was good. Look, to kind of play off of it a little bit, Ralphie may not be running, but the Haynes duo definitely will be. It's Haynes King, it's Jamal Haynes.
Haynes and Haynes, attorney at law.
They're fantastic. And look, they're a great running combo, obviously. I think Georgia Tech is going to be great. They made my playoff this year. If I don't pick them against Colorado, yeah, forget about it. Don't even worry about it. I'm picking them, obviously, to win this game. I'm going to pick them to cover the 4 points. I think it'll be a big night for Georgia Tech. It's going to be a little bit of a spoil spot. We might see, some fans heading for the exits a little early in that one because I don't think this one's going to be very close at all. I like what Colorado did to kind of replace some stuff, but I think it's going to be a step back for them this year.
Yeah, they got some nice pieces, right? They fortified that run defense. It was quietly a lot better last year, but I think this is a different type of challenge. Interesting. It's always going to be interesting for a team from a place like Atlanta playing at altitude. That's just a weird wrinkle in this one. A Friday night, it could be weird. And Colorado's been really good in season openers. We remember that they shocked TCU a couple of years ago when no one expected them to do that on the road. So it could be interesting. I think this will be a close game. I'm not expecting a Georgia Tech blowout, but if it's somewhere in the 34 to 27 range, that's kind of the vibe I get on this one. Georgia Tech finding a way. Yep. Saturday, as we move forward into the slate, 11 a.m. on ABC, we've got a very interesting quote-unquote neutral site game in Atlanta. It's Syracuse taking on number 24 Tennessee. Tennessee, the Vols, 13.5-point favorites in this one. All I got to say on this one, Garrett, is Tennessee needs to hit the ground running. No pun intended. I know the run game, not having Dylan Sampson is going to be a big deal. We got to find out who's going to replace that production from last year. Obviously, there's the whole Nico situation. This is a team that gives me a lot of 8-4 vibes as I'm looking into them in the offseason, but that's predicated on them winning this game against a plucky Syracuse team. They need to get out and running. I don't think Tennessee wants to play a shootout in this one. I don't think that they're going to like how much pressure that puts on them and how many nerves that gives their fans, quite frankly. I've got Syracuse covering the spread. I think they're going to keep it within 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think so too. Don't know if I'm going to pick them to win, but I will pick them to cover that 13.5. I just don't think that you can spot that many points to a team that's playing offense with so much production to replace, right? Like, no Dylan Sampson, no Nico, like, whatever you want to say about him. I don't think he's that dynamic. We'll talk about that later when we talk UCLA, but regardless of that, that's still so much to replace. And I don't think that you can say, hey, these guys will be 2 touchdown favorites against a Syracuse team that, yes, they're replacing a lot too, but just prove that they're not a doormat, right? They're definitely not a doormat. Fran Brown doesn't have them playing like that. So I think that this will be a closer one than a lot expect. I do think Tennessee probably wins this game. But to me, the big thing is going to be watching who's going to run the ball for them and who's going to be that guy. They want to run the football. That's part of what they want to do in their offensive scheme. But who's going to be the guy to be that dynamic? Can he start to get up to that place where Dylan Sampson was? Not trying to get him to be exactly who Dylan Sampson was, but can he start to produce somewhere close to that level? If he can, then sure, yeah, give me a couple touchdowns for the Vols. But until we see that, I don't think I can believe that yet.
Yeah, Syracuse replacing a lot too. Of course, the leader in FBS passing last year, Kyle McCord, moves on, but I'm a big Steve Angeli fan. I think
like it. I thought it was good.
Got a lot of moxie. We saw that last year in the playoff when he had to come in for a few drives. He spelled Riley Leonard really well in spots last year. So I'm excited to see what he can do in that offense. It seems like the Midwest quarterbacks elixir, the struggling Midwest quarterbacks elixir. Kyle McCord goes there and leads FBS in passing after struggling at Ohio State.
Yeah.
Steve Angeli, who knows? He could be the next in line. They're another team that's got a brutal schedule, man. I'm rooting for them to make it back to a bowl game, but it's a who's who of everybody in the SEC or ACC, I should say. And then let's throw in a game against Tennessee and Notre Dame as well on that schedule.
I was going to say, man, what a brutal schedule. They scheduled everyone in the SEC in addition to their conference play.
They did, yeah. They're playing 27 games, I think.
That's crazy.
Counted. So, yeah. All right,
let's still may not get to 6 wins.
Yeah. Let's move on to Saturday at 2:30 on ABC. Number 8, Alabama, is a 13.5-point favorite on the road at Florida State. Everyone and their mother has just left Florida State for dead. I'm really interested to see how they respond. I think I know how that's going to go. I'm not pumped to watch a lot of Florida State football this year, if I'm being honest, but this is an interesting spot here with my Florida State at home getting so many points. They've got a very interesting quarterback situation in Tommy Castellanos. I know that he hasn't been – he got benched at Boston College last year. Like, did not tread around the bush, but he does feel like a really good quarterback for Gus Malzahn's system. He does feel almost tailor-made for that system, and he can throw the ball a little bit. This is not a guy that is only a running guy. On the other side of the ball, I'm really excited about Alabama's offense. I think they are going to revamp that offense. Ryan Grubb coming back and reuniting with Kalen DeBoer is just a match made in heaven. Ty Simpson feels like a way better fit for the scheme than Jalen Milroe was last year. No disrespect to Milroe, but it just felt like a square peg in a round hole a lot of times. I could see some early jitters. Like I'm thinking back to the Bama game at Wisconsin last year, where it was closer for a little bit longer. That stadium's going to be really hyped up, and you never know just how a younger team is going to react to that. But in the end, I see Bama just absolutely running away from this one. I feel like 13.5. If we were still doing the lock of the week segment, this would probably be my lock of the week.
Yeah, I really don't like this spot for Florida State. I think Alabama could be legitimately nightmare fuel on defense. I think they're going to be really, really good on defense. And obviously, with the DeBoer Grubb combo getting back together, it's the reunion we were all waiting for, right? We're excited about this. Yeah, it's going to be great. Combine that with the fact that they've had so much bulletin board material coming from the Noles side. I think Bama makes this one ugly quick. I kind of don't think that Florida State's going to be able to hang around that much. I think they might be trading 7s for 3s a little bit early. And I wouldn't be shocked if it's a bad day. For Florida State, I think it's going to be an ugly day for them. I don't think it's going to be good vibes there to start the season. And then the big question for me there is, how do the fans start to act if they go and take a beating from Alabama? I don't know that I'd put up with too much more if I'm a Florida State fan.
There's a pretty big buyout that they got to deal with. It's not pretty.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this was should not have been a 2-10 team last year, if that
No.
makes sense. But they were a 2-10 team last year, and you are what your record says you are at some point. I know some in the space don't believe that. I think Florida State was a 2-10 team last year. That they were what their record said they were last year. I will say the recipe for Florida State keeping this close is if they can kind of disrupt the line of scrimmage a little bit. I do like some of the pieces that Florida State has on the defensive line. Alabama's offensive line hasn't been the best the last couple of years, dating back to the very late Saban era. So there is a little bit of an opportunity there, but that path is very, very narrow. And I trust Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer to be able to scheme around that pretty well.
Yeah, I could see that happening where they disrupt it, but I think it's going to be, there's too much motivation on the Bama side as well. Like, I think if you finish the season the way Bama did with the loss to Michigan in the bowl game and you didn't make the playoff and then you talked your mess about not making the playoff and then you go get embarrassed by Michigan too, I just don't know. Man, I think that they're going to come out with some fire under their butts. Like, I personally have Bama undefeated this year. It's going to be, oh man, I think it's going to be a rough day for Florida State. I think Bama's going to roll pretty early.
Late night game here, Saturday, 10 p.m. Central, Garrett.
We'll
thoughts
be
and prayers for
staying up, burning the midnight oil for this one.
I mean, we're not doing our stream on Saturday night. We're doing it on Sunday, so I might have to watch this.
Might recap it the next day.
I might need to watch it on Sunday morning. I'm not gonna lie. This is one of the biggest under the radar games of the week for my mind, and I think this is going to be a really interesting one. It's Utah 6-point favorites on the road at UCLA. Devin Dampier making a very anticipated debut for Utah. No more speculating on if Cam Rising is available. We know that it will be Devin Dampier. And the Nico era beginning in Pasadena. There's a new offensive coordinator at UCLA as well, Tino Sunseri. He was at Indiana last year, so there's some optimism there. And Dampier, for all of his great traits at New Mexico, was loose with the football. He did have a lot of turnovers. Now, a lot of that was probably forcing it. He was the main thing that New Mexico had going for them last year. Had to force a ton for them to stay in shootouts. But this is a UCLA defense that has played really disciplined ball under Foster, and they seem to really like playing for him. So they had 10 interceptions last year. It's a tricky spot. I like the Utes to win, but the Bruins actually quietly might be pretty good on defense this year. I mentioned that they like to play well for Coach Foster. They had quietly had the sixth best rushing defense in the entire country last year. That shocked me when I read that during preview season. Was not expecting to read that, but could be a little bit of a difficult matchup. Game one and with a new quarterback, breaking in a lot of new pieces around elsewhere on the offense as well. I think Utah's going to be really good this year. I think they're going to compete for the Big 12, but I'm going to take UCLA +6 here. Utah gets the win, but UCLA makes it pretty close.
I think Utah's probably going to cover up that 6. I do like a lot of what UCLA is doing. They did figure it out sort of in the back part of that schedule. Obviously, the amount of travel that they did was insane, so I don't blame them for it. But I just think that Dampier probably elevates the offense for Utah a little bit more than we've seen. They've really just been stuck in the mud with the maybe Cam Rising, maybe not Cam Rising, and then the myriad of other guys who could have maybe been something sort of kind of and then just never panned out, right? It feels like Utah's been struggling to find a good quarterback since Cam Rising was last healthy and seen playing football. I think Dampier is going to elevate the offense and give them that other aspect to work with the pass game, and then I think it's just going to be about them doing their thing with the football game. I think they're a better program right now than UCLA. I think they're ahead, and I'm going to pick them to win this one. Not necessarily comfortably where they can just take their foot off the gas, but I think they'll win this one with enough of a margin that we're not worried about it at the back part of the fourth quarter. So give me the Utes -6, and still I think some good things for UCLA. I don't think I'm sold on Nico being a difference maker. I would be surprised if he seriously elevated UCLA's offense. I think if he's going to play a lot better, it's going to be a lot more because of that OC and a lot less because he's just that different as a quarterback.
I feel like we've been agreeing a lot tonight. It's good to disagree for once, but
Yeah.
I'm with you on Utah getting the win. I think that they will be 1-0 leaving Pasadena. We go to Sunday, 2 o'clock. We get a doubleheader on Sunday this year. That's a lot of fun. 2 o'clock ESPN. It's Virginia Tech and number 13 South Carolina in Atlanta. The Gamecocks are 8-point favorites, and they got a huge boost this week when Rishel Faison's waiver was cleared. The former Utah State running back. He's going to lead the Carolina backfield. It was looking a little dicey if he didn't get that waiver cleared. It was not the depth behind him. Some interesting pieces, but definitely wasn't going to be as good as what they had last year. And I think Faison coming in can solidify that room. He's going to be a really nice RB1. Dude's like 25 years old, so the LinkedIn jokes were a-flowing on Twitter when that waiver announcement was happening. But if you're making one of those jokes, I get it. Like I'm leaning towards like, all right, guys, let's get out of here. But his story is very interesting. I would just encourage you to look into why he is getting that waiver if you feel that way. So all that being said, my biggest question about South Carolina this year is, can they maintain the momentum that they built on defense last year with so many pieces moving on? They had 9 players, this offense and defense, but total on their team, they have 9 players that made it to an NFL training camp, either from a draft pick or undrafted free agents. That's kind of unheard of at a school like South Carolina in recent years. That's a lot of talent walking out the door, and most of it was on the defensive side of the ball. They, of course, are still going to have one of the best pass rushes in the country. But long term this season, I'm very interested to see how that plays out. In a vacuum here against the Hokies, I don't think this is a good matchup for Virginia Tech. I'm not expecting this one to be particularly close. Virginia Tech lost 4 offensive line starters last season. Last year, they were expected to be an ACC title contender. That fell apart very early, like week 1 when they lost to Vanderbilt. South Carolina just feels way ahead of Virginia Tech at this point as a program. So I'm taking South Carolina to kind of run away with this one.
Yeah, we were just talking about disagreeing. I literally wrote in the show doc just same LOL because I couldn't agree more. I think South Carolina is the much better team. I think it's going to be a steamroll of Virginia Tech. I think this is where Sellers gets to start his Heisman campaign and just really kick that thing off strong. I think it's maybe I don't want to say it because it hurts to say it for Virginia Tech, but I think it's a chance to pad your stats a little bit and, make yourself look a little bit better for those end of the year trophy discussions. I think he's going to come out ready to go. And yeah, I think it's going to be an absolute steamroll for South Carolina right now. They're just the better program at this point in time, and they absolutely have the better, Jimmys and Joes, especially on the offensive side of the football. They got the better players right now.
Well, we saved maybe the best one for last, Garrett.
Oh
Monday
boy.
night, 7 p.m. ESPN. The debut of Bill Belichick as a college football head coach. He's coaching, of course, the North Carolina Tar Heels. Unless you've been buried under a rock for the last 9 months, you know that. They host TCU in a really interesting game. A couple years ago, this game might be like 56-50 in the final score, but we just don't know what North Carolina is going to look like. I could sit here and break down player by player what I think North Carolina, where some advantages they might be. I don't know. And no one does. Anyone that tells you they know what North Carolina is going to look like this year is lying to you or trying to sell you something. So I am very interested to see this game, though. I'm very intrigued to see Bill Belichick on a college sideline. I'm secretly rooting for him. I think it would be a really cool story for this to work out and kind of get some vindication for his GOAT status as a just football coach in general. But there's just too many unknowns for me to pick them in week one. I've got TCU winning this one here. But I will say, something to watch for. That TCU offense, I think it's going to be humming. But if Bill Belichick can continue to do his thing of taking away the best option, which in this case would probably be Eric McAllister, that's what he made his money on in the NFL for decades. Literally, he just would take away your best option, say, all right, beat me with one hand tied behind your back. Good luck. If he can do that, if he's coached his guys to do that, and maybe he's had some more opportunities with an extended period of time to look at TCU's film, we could be having a lot of fun talking about Bill Belichick starting 1-0 next week.
Yeah, this will be a fun one to watch. I'm not gonna lie, I don't understand the Bill Belichick thing. The whole situation does not make sense to me, and the
The football
his
or the off the field stuff?
all of it, the whole thing. I don't get it at all. The jokes can be made, sure. I love the jokes. I saw a tweet earlier today that I don't think is true, but that they were expecting, and I don't think that's obviously true. That's shocking. That's not going to be real.
That is unsubstantiated reporting, sir. We
Yeah, that
don't
is.
do
To
that
be
on
clear,
this
that's not
show.
even reporting. That's just me saying I saw a funny tweet. That's nothing. I just don't get it. No part of my brain is able to understand why. What was it? 6-time Super Bowl winners. He's won a bunch of NFL rings. I don't know why you would come out of retirement for this in your mid late 70s, whatever age he is now. I don't get it, man. I'm hoping that it's fun, and I'm hoping it gives us another storyline. But man, this just feels like a huge distraction. I actually got to tell my dad about that. He doesn't pay attention to a lot of the offseason stuff, so I get to do the kind of, hey, here's what happened over the offseason. I'm like, you'll never believe who's coaching at North Carolina. He's like, isn't it Mac Brown? I'm like, oh, Dad, I got a story for you. And so I got to explain that to him, and he was, confounded. He couldn't understand it either. So, yeah, I going back to the on the field thing, I do think TCU wins the game. I think they win it pretty handily. Their pass game is really good. They should be able to, score a bunch of points in this one. Don't think that UNC is going to be able to keep up with them. I think they'll do a couple laps around them and win pretty big. But, man, it's just going to be fun to watch and figure out why that's happening. I don't know if she's going to be on the sidelines or not. That's my big question. That's one thing I'm watching for.
Listen, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. We don't have to talk about that. We're not talking about this in the words of Jordan Hudson. So
We're on to TCU.
We're on to TCU. We're not talking about this. All that good stuff. All right, Garrett, let's end things here with a new section of our preview shows. This is brand new this year. We're calling it, I don't even know if we have a name for it yet, but I'm just calling it One More Storyline to watch for this week. I'll try to come up with a better name for this, for next week, for week 2 preview. But this is just an opportunity for each of us when we get Mitch back here, hopefully next week. Opportunity for each of us to shout out one more game or one more storyline that we're watching that wouldn't otherwise make the run sheet. So I'll turn it over to you. What are you watching for this week?
My big thing I'm watching for is this is going to be our chance to see all these new quarterbacks we're going to be talking about this year and for the next several years, as some of these are a little bit younger. This is your next chance to watch this younger crop of quarterbacks, and there's going to be a lot of exciting new faces. Teams like Michigan, I haven't listed out, Georgia, USC, Indiana, Oregon, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, BYU, Iowa, all breaking in some new faces at quarterback. Some of them freshmen, some of them transfers, some of them guys that have been in the program and are finally getting their shot as the day one starter. I'm really excited to watch and see a lot of these guys. I'm going to have to keep Michigan on a TV because I've got to see Bryce Underwood play. Just got to watch him play. I know that Mitch is big on Iowa and what they got going on there. I think it'll be fun too.
Mark Gronowski, baby.
It
FCS
should be a lot of
finest.
fun. Should be a lot of fun. I like, Maava at USC. I think he's going to be a fun player. There's just a lot of guys that I'm excited to see play, and I'm excited to see how they fit into their offenses so that I can get a better gauge next week of who's going to win. Maybe some bigger time matchups. It's going to be a lot of fun, so that's my big thing I'm watching for.
All right. Well, I love it. I love all the new quarterbacks. Love that we're getting a new generation here. It feels like almost every year we get just such a shakeup with the transfer portal and all these new young guns coming in, but feels even bigger this year with all those that you mentioned, not to mention Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, all the teams that we already talked about on this preview show too. I'm watching one game specifically, but really a whole conference this week. I'm watching the American because I think they might be a little mad that they got passed up by Boise State last year. Obviously, Boise State was the right choice for the G5 playoff spot last year, but it's 2 years in a row where the American kind of got passed by. Liberty got picked over them for a New Year's Six Bowl in the last year, the 14 playoff. Boise State picked over the American champion Army last year. Again, the correct choice objectively, but I think the American top to bottom is still the best G5 conference. And they're going to be looking for some big opportunities early in this season. Specifically, we've already mentioned South Florida and Boise State. That would be a complete huge opportunity for the American to knock off their biggest competitor to the G5 playoff spot. But we've also got East Carolina, NC State, a game we've talked about already. App State and Charlotte. Charlotte could knock off a perennial G5 power in App State. UTSA going to Texas A&M. Knock on wood. Right? That's a game that I woke up very nervous about on Monday morning as it was game week. But the biggest must win in my mind is 11 a.m. on Saturday. It's on ESPNU. It's Northwestern going down to Tulane. Tulane is 4.5-point favorites as we record this on Tuesday night. Jake Retzlaff taking over, coming down from BYU late in the process, but he's going to be the starter for Tulane. I think all of a sudden that puts them right in the thick of this G5 playoff race, and this is a must-win game. You're not going to get in over an 11-1 Boise if you're 11-1, even with a loss to a team like Northwestern. That's just not going to work. This is a must-win, not just for Tulane, but to build a lot of credibility for the entire conference. Northwestern is probably going to finish last in the Big Ten. Maybe they'll finish ahead of Purdue or maybe a couple other teams, but this is an opportunity that they have to win to give that conference a little bit of legitimacy. So I'm watching the American this week. I'm watching to see if they can get things done and kind of put themselves back at the top of that pecking order. But guys, if you've been watching or listening for this long, thank you so much. We know you love college football. Thank you for being a part of the Jimmies and Joes. Make sure, if you are not already, like this video, subscribe on the YouTube channel, make sure that you're following along on social media at 3TechPod on Instagram and Twitter. We got a ton of fun content that's exclusive to each platform, so you don't want to miss anything. And then we have our Substack too, where we are writing articles that we send out, and you can get this podcast emailed directly to your inbox each and every time that we post. Lots of fun ways to connect. We can't wait to hear from you. Make sure you tune in to the live show on Sunday night as well, immediately following Notre Dame and Miami. Until that live show, we will see you guys next time. Enjoy the week.